This is World Cafe. I'm Raina Douris. There's a stereotype you might think of when it comes to drummers in rock bands. For instance, you might think of the wild-eyed Muppet Animal with his hair swinging all over as he bashes along to the beat. But Philip Selway, the drummer for Radiohead, cuts directly against that stereotype. He's calm, he's thoughtful, he's precise. And on his latest solo album, Strange Dance, he doesn't even play the drums. He joined me to talk about the decision to hand the drumsticks over to someone else for this record and about some of the creative sonic tricks they used on Strange Dance. He also talks about being a bit of a perfectionist, which might be why he didn't release his first solo album until 2010, almost 2 decades after Radiohead hit it big with Creep. Oh, and he'll also talk about playing Creep. Now, just a note, due to licensing and record label stuff, you won't hear full album cuts in this YouTube version. You'll just hear short clips. But you will hear Philip Selway in live performances recorded in front of an audience for World Cafe, beginning with this song from his new album, Strange Dance, Check for Signs of Life.
Coming back again to what I know. It's not the same. It feels all out of place. Losing days abide my time. Hope lies between the lines. It's in the cracks we wait. So let some daylight get in. Check for signs of life. There's dust on everything. I say your name. It sounds different now you're gone. Well, this life has changed and shaped us all. And this life has changed forevermore. You here by my side. I'm lost without you now. All the walls are closing in. Memories of a life that's been. Traces all around. So let some daylight get in. Check for signs of life, there's dust on everything. I say your name, it sounds different now you're gone. Well, this life has changed and shaped us all. And this life has changed forevermore. I'm calling. Dear God, it hurts to be alone. I'm calling. God, it's a curse to be alone. Let it show. Don't let the silence grow. I'll wait for you here. Go to sleep and find a place to dream. Thank you.
You just heard Philip Selway on World Cafe. That's a song called Check for Signs of Life. It's from his latest solo album, Strange Dance. I'm Raina Douris, and Philip Selway is my guest today. Welcome to the World Cafe.
Thank you, Raina. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you. And I think we should probably just get straight to it, because for folks who know you as the drummer of Radiohead, there's a bit of an unexpected twist on this album. You are not playing the drums.
No, not at all.
You originally planned to play the drums. Why did you decide to give that responsibility to somebody else?
Well, I got into the studio. I was about a day, maybe a day and a half into me drumming. And, I went into the control room. I was just having a talk with the producer, Marta Sologna, just saying, I don't think it's working out with this drummer. It is...
Referring to yourself.
Yeah. And so, it just wasn't happening in the way I wanted it to at that point. My head was so very much in the kind of the bigger picture, and also kind of preparing to go and do the session. Mm-hmm. My time had gone into that. And I mean, drumming is one of these instruments that if you haven't been putting the time into it, which I hadn't really been coming out to it.
Physical.
It's very physical. And I just had to kind of be honest with myself, have a soft word with myself and just say, it's not your gig, matey. So I spoke with Marta, as I say, the producer, and just saying kind of how I heard the kind of percussive and rhythmical textures in there. And she suggested an incredible drummer percussionist called Valentina Magaletti, who she's done a lot of work with as well. And Valentina came along, and it just kind of, it was like almost the songs came into like full technicolor with her playing on there. And it was just so exciting listening to what she was doing. And then that created a really fantastic bed to build all the other kind of arrangements, orchestrations on top of.
As a drummer yourself, what do you admire about Valentina's drumming?
There was, her ability to improvise and to actually pull together a cohesive performance, which is very singular to her, which is very rich and complex at points. She's able to do that just on the fly, and that's incredible. But you've just got this real personality coming through in her playing as well. I've been so lucky with all the drummers I've worked with in my solo work. There's been Valentina, like with this show. I've been working with Chris Vattalaro, who I've done a lot of work with as well, and there was Glenn Cochie from Wilco, and it's just I've been very lucky indeed. What
does letting go of the drumming allow you to focus on instead? What were you able to do?
I think with that, it's almost like taking your ego out of the process, because I find that if it's not happening for me drumming wise, I start beating myself up a bit about it, and that's kind of like a counterproductive approach in that situation, and so it was definitely the right call. I would not have found my way to Valentina otherwise, and she's very much a big part of the sound of the record.
There are so many layers. There's so much going on. There's layers of textures, layers of sounds. I want to talk to you about how you achieved some of those textures. And then we're going to talk about the song Picking Up Pieces. You did something with the tape of the guitar loops.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about that?
So one of the things that Marta does, Marta Sologna, the producer, she works a lot with tape machines. And so she have quite a few of these old reel-to-reel tape machines around the studio as you're working, and sets up these tape loops and kind of feeds what you're working on in them and puts those through effect. So immediately it takes the song into a very different kind of sonic, if you like. And with Picking Up Pieces, in fact, one in particular, I we did the guitar part as a couple of loops. So there's this huge tape loop, which was just like kind of loop going around pencils and paintbrushes in the studio, and then coming back round to the tape machine. And then they were left out in the backyard for about a week. So they kind of they took on, if the tape slightly deteriorates in that time, but the sound of that was just incredible, you know.
Weren't you worried something was going to happen to it outside, like a squirrel is going to nibble through your tape or something?
Yeah, no, I didn't think of that.
Well, let's listen to a bit of the album version of Picking Up Pieces.
Picking up pieces.
From Philip Selway's latest album, Strange Dance, that was a bit of Picking Up the Pieces. We're going to hear you perform that song live for us next. What else should we listen for in this performance?
In this particular performance, Chris Vattalaro, the drummer, is just, he's incredible. He has this very small setup when he's playing, the bare minimum as a kit, and the various little bits of percussion there, and this kind of electronic side of what he's doing. But from that, he just generates all these incredible textures. And with this performance, I think it really shows off the strings particularly well. So been playing this past week with Acme from New York, just an incredible string quartet. The string arrangements were written by Laura Moody, and she's part of a quartet called Elysian Collective. Both quartets are incredible. I find it fascinating, though, how much kind of there is a different character. You can tell the character in the different quartets,
right.
And both equally good, but it just kind of puts that slightly different slant on it as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen to the strings in here. This is Picking Up Pieces. It's Philip Selway live for the World Cafe.
Picking up pieces, random lines, lost in a moment. You're lost in your own world most of the time. I can't imagine how it felt to be on your own here, with all of these problems and nobody else. I'm on the outside looking in, watching you falter, watching you wait for your life to begin. This conversation just can't wait. You're moving in circles and drifting away. Told me it's not what it seems. This safe life in the sun, I never believed it. I never believed you at all. Picking up pieces of your life, lost in the moment. You're lost in your own world most of the time. This conversation just can't wait. You're moving in circles and drifting away.
Recorded live for the World Cafe, you just heard my guest, Philip Selway, playing Picking Up Pieces. It's a song from his latest solo album, Strange Dance. I'm Raina Douris. You've said that that song that we just heard, Picking Up the Pieces, you're singing from the perspective of a young man. And it's about that feeling when you're young and you act like you're confident and you act like you know what's going on, but you're actually feeling all that uncertainty around who you are and what life is, I guess. What brought you back to that place? Why was that a phase of life that was on your mind?
I think it was written at a time when, it was coming towards the end of the pandemic. It was really saddening, actually, looking at the impact that it had on, that kind of late teens, early adult age group, where all of those things that I took for granted when I was that age, the social life side of things, the sense if you were doing a degree, that actually you just got on, didn't get on with a degree in my case, but I could have. But, all those opportunities where you kind of forge your independence, where you get a sense of yourself. And it just felt that all of those kind of opportunities had been curtailed quite considerably. It was just like feeling so sorry for that generation.
Yeah. It's I can't imagine trying to figure out who you are alone in a room with your phone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do want to go back to who you were as a young man when you started writing your own songs. So I know you started writing when you were, I think, a teenager.
Yeah.
What were those teenage Philip Selway songs like? Do you remember?
They're okay. The first song that I ever wrote, it kind of sounded like a Buddy Holly song, actually. That's probably because I'd been listening to Buddy Holly at the time. I look back on it, some lyrics I look back on and think, oh, that was good. Other lyrics you just go completely cringe about. I think sometimes the quality control and might not have been as good as it could have been. I was dabbling in songwriting at that time. It was after we were signed, a while into us being signed, because at that point I then wanted to just really focus on my drumming for a while.
For Radiohead, yeah.
Yeah. Dabbling in songwriting was still going on in the background. And actually, I felt I was getting better at it, but I didn't have a set of songs that I felt happy with until probably I was about in my early to mid 30s.
I'm speaking with Philip Selway on World Cafe. So you were writing songs, I guess, all the way through that time on your own, by yourself, whether or not you thought they might ever see the light of day or anything. I know that you wanted to make music your career pretty early on in your life. When Radiohead became successful and very famous after Creep blew up, and you had this music career that you wanted for yourself, how did you handle the pressure, I guess, of huge crowds and being recognized and every person out there knowing every beat of the songs that you were playing?
I think we were lucky. We were a band that came through in a time when you still had that kind of support behind you, that kind of time to develop. So everything was a step up for us. We kind of, when we started touring, it was small venues in the UK, and that seemed big at that point. There's all these venues around the country that you'd heard of, but that's where you really start to find your feet. You go through that process of being able to play every night rather than like once every 3 months to your friends or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a job. It's like a real every day.
Absolutely.
You go to work. Yeah,
and you're playing to people that you don't know, so you have to be convincing in some way. So that's kind of where you really start learning your craft. But we've been lucky, I think, that each stage had, when we've gone to the next stage up, I think we've had long enough in that the last stage that you feel, okay, yeah, no, we're ready. I do remember, I say that though, I do remember when we first came to the States. It's 1993, and we'd been doing, as describing, the smaller shows around the UK, and then Creep suddenly kind of did its thing over in the States, and we found ourselves coming over, and we did about 4 months of touring that year over here, and it did suddenly kind of rocket. It felt like it was kind of like romping away, and I actually found that quite hard at the time. That was kind of that sense of there being an expectation of where you should be.
Right.
And at the time, I think as well, but you come to the States, and bands will have toured and toured and toured, and that forges a very particular kind of musician and a very particular kind of musicality and musical competence. Kind of probably we didn't have that kind of experience behind us in the same way at the time. So yeah, the points where I did feel a little bit out of my depth then, but
I do have to ask you this because I saw you say this somewhere, and I was like, wow, I need to know. You said you still have a hard time playing Creep sometimes because it's a tricky song to play more than 30 years after it came out, and I'm not a drummer, so
right.
I mean anything's tricky for me. But could you explain what makes it difficult to play?
Oh wow, it's such a long time since I played that song now. I think it's possibly because you know that you're playing it and people know it's inside out, and it's just it's fixed in there, and yeah, I've always had moments on that with it's boring stuff. It's kick drum technique. It's very boring. Your listeners don't want to hear about that.
Well, we'll hear a bit of Creep.
But I'm a creep. I don't care if it hurts.
On World Cafe, that was a bit of Creep from Radiohead. I'm Raina Douris. My guest today is Philip Selway. He has a new solo album called Strange Dance. Philip, you've been involved in the Samaritans, a charity group, for many, many years. And I found this very interesting that you were a volunteer as a telephone listener, even in the years when Radiohead was, totally had already blown up. First, could you explain for people who might not know what a telephone listener is and what that job entails?
So with Samaritans, it's volunteers who you go through their training process to actually then provide support, provide non-judgmental support, giving people space to really just examine their own feelings and feeling supported in that. I mean, with Samaritans, it's very much people who are experiencing suicidal feelings as well. So it's kind of making a safe environment to discuss those very, very hard and isolating feelings. I trained to be a listening volunteer initially when I was doing my degree in Liverpool in the UK, and yes, went through quite a long training process of that. Just it's a real art actually listening effectively and properly, and fighting that urge within yourself to jump in and give advice. In that context, that's not a useful thing to do. It is giving people the space to examine their own feelings and feel supported through that. And I think that's what Samaritans do exceptionally well. I was a listening volunteer for about 20 years, and then I had some time away from it. and now I'm involved with the organisation as an ambassador for them. So, but as a part of my life, it's been a huge part of my adult life, really.
Yeah. Why were you drawn to that?
I really don't know. I still look back on it and think, why did I do that?
Obviously, like that kind of charity work, it helps other people. That's sort of the idea. It's charity work. You're helping others. But was there something in that it gave you?
I do remember that kind of first week at college, going up there. I mean, maybe it was purely just a thing of reaching out and finding some kind of sense of being part of a community. At the time, they put out kind of bookmarks that we were all given, like in our first week, in our Freshers' Week. And the one from Samaritans saying, we're here for you. But also part of it was, do you feel you're this kind of particular kind of person, a person who can listen? And I guess it resonated with me in some way. It's a huge privilege to be trusted, that people will open up to you and share the most vulnerable feelings with you.
I'll quickly reintroduce you. I'm talking to Philip Selway on World Cafe. Let's return to your album, Strange Dance. We're going to hear you perform another live song. Now we're going to hear the other side. It's Philip Selway, live for the World Cafe.
You're not listening anymore. You're playing games. Don't deny what I just saw. You'll close me down again. I know that look, you can't pretend everything is still okay. You're holding something back. Bite my tongue, don't react. It never helps us anyway. Well, I've seen you and all your faults and doubts. I can't unsee it now. We both know what these games are all about. Where's the light? I can hardly see you now. You're chasing highs again. I know that look, you can't pretend that everything is still alright. Long time ago, you hit the wall and lost control, and now it's buried deep inside. Well, I've seen you and all your faults and doubts. Can't unsee it now. So what are you gonna do when I meet you on the other side? Deny it all and carry on like nothing's ever changed. What are you gonna do when I meet you on the other side? Deny it all and carry on like nothing's ever changed. Thank you.
Performed in front of a live audience at World Cafe. That was Philip Selway with The Other Side, a song from his solo album Strange Dance. My name is Raina Douris, joined by Philip today. In these live performances that we are hearing, like we've talked about, you're not behind the drum set. You are out playing piano, you're playing guitar, you're much closer to the front of the stage. How does that physical change in distance between you and the people who are there to see you, how does that change your relationship with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, what you're tapping into there, it's a very different stagecraft from being a drummer. And I feel far more comfortable with being in that place now at the front of the stage than I did when I kind of first went out doing my shows. And it's again, it comes back to that whole thing that you need that time and that experience of doing it. I mean, as a drummer, I don't have to worry about that side of things. Right. And you know, you project what you're doing. I mean, kind of, you know, you try and reach people kind of at the back of the auditorium. So you're trying to make that connection, but you don't have to talk between songs. Yeah. And that is a whole different kind of way of performing. And it's almost like having two sides of your brain, isn't it? In some ways, it's learning how to balance up those two aspects of it. So you can switch between the two. Sometimes it works. Other times it's, it becomes a bit tenuous.
What do you remember from the first show you played where you were like, okay, I'm at the front, I'm by myself, and I have to say something between songs?
Do you know, the first thing that I ever did, I was on a project with Neil Finn from Crowded Houses down in New Zealand. This was at the end of 2008. And it was a project called Seven Worlds Collide. I'd gone down to be a drummer in there. The idea was to get a group of musicians together to write, record, and then perform a record in a couple of weeks. And it was an incredible environment to be in. You know, Wilco was there, Lisa Germano, Johnny Marr. So it was an amazing collection of musicians there. And I remember I was starting to play my songs at that point, and Neil said, "Well, you should go and record that." And it was great. It was just like all my dreams come true, getting a song out. And then we did the shows, and he said, "No, you got to go and play it." That was okay. At that point, it felt a little bit awkward, but kind of Neil was there, and I felt, you know, he was carrying that side of things. But then going up, once I'd finished my album Familial, and then it was the first album, and then going out to tour that. So I went out to do a double-header tour with Lisa Germano, who is just unbelievably brilliant. But I do remember the first show, I think it was in Milan, and I remember getting halfway through the set, and somebody put a note on the stage in front of me. And I thought, well, you know, maybe this is a request or something. We don't get this as a Radiohead show. So I picked up the note and opened it, and somebody had written to me in this note, "You are a disgrace to Radiohead."
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is my first show.
What did you react to it while you were up there?
Well, you can't really, can you? But, you know, it's something that went in deep.
Yeah.
But in a way, you know, that was kind of it. That's the steep learning curve. You know, you're in you can be in quite a vulnerable place there, and you're putting so much more of yourself out there. And I guess that's the bit that I've had to learn to do, really.
Yeah.
And kind of rationalize those experiences. I mean, I've never had anything like that again, but
that's awful.
It's a good sign, though. You know, if I was getting more of those notes, then I might question what I was doing.
Right, they stopped, which means you're fine. I'm speaking with Philip Selway on World Cafe. All the members of Radiohead have different projects, solo projects, other bands now. How does that affect the dynamic of the band when you're all hanging out together?
Well, I think the last lot of shows that we did, in fact, the very last show that we did was here in Philadelphia. That's back in 2018. And since then, we've not played as a band. We kind of always originally intended to take a year out of it. The pandemic happened, and then so everybody's been doing their own projects. So the short answer to your question is we don't know yet.
You're right.
But that's going to be really fascinating, actually. And I think any musician benefits from going out and having those other musical experiences. I think, there'll be an element of it when we do play together again that, it'll be picking up in some ways where you left off. We played together so much over the past decades that, I think that in some ways that's kind of part of your DNA, part of your muscle memory. But I think it would have been really healthy to go off and have these other musical experiences. And, they're all very valid in their own right as well. But I think that will have a very positive effect on how we kind of move on as a band.
Mm-hmm. We come back with a new appreciation for everything, too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
The last song that we're going to hear you perform today is the title track to the new album, Strange Dance. And it's the song that has been in the works for the longest. You originally started writing this 20 years ago,
yes,
I believe. Why was it time to take this song out, finish it, and then name the whole album after it?
It was the very last song that I finished on the record. So it was the very first song that I started and the very last one that I finished. And it went, in some ways, it felt that song in particular had gone on this kind of epic journey. It started out as just kind of on an acoustic guitar. I really didn't know what to do with it at the time, and it felt like a pretty melody on there, although slightly stretching my range at the time. And then coming into the record, it became this piano ballad. It was still feeling a little bit stilted, but I think it then became one of those tracks which it was a really good example of the approach of, okay, get the songs to a point coming into the sessions where, it works in a way, but then just completely stripping it bare and building up again. And that sense of everybody's input into everybody's musical voice coming through there. I felt really proud of it, actually. It's just like, okay, well, that doesn't really sound like anything else. And that felt good. And it was the last lyric that I finished as well. And in fact, it didn't have a title, and the title was the very last thing that was added to it. And but that's that idea of the strange dance where you're trying to marry up all these kind of like seemingly irreconcilable aspects of your life and kind of all the contortions that you put yourself through to get there. But it does have this kind of beautiful choreography to it as well. And I thought the term strange dance, I thought that summed that up and it really keyed into what was going on. I was trying to explore lyrically on the record as well.
What a wonderful way to sum up this interview. Here is Strange Dance performed live. Philip Selway on World Cafe.
And I'm waiting out this night, wishing I was coming home. These highs and lows leave me numb. Well, I've been running all my there's no one left to hide. I'm all out, a hollowed, brittle fool. But say this night was never meant to end like this. Tell me that I'm wrong, so wrong, and I throw it all away. And in this strange dance, hold me in your arms tonight. 'Cause it's for one time I could honestly say that nothing stands in our way. And I'm alive. La, 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 outside the full wolf moon lights the world between us now. These highs and lows leave me numb. So I'm waiting out this night, wishing I was coming home to dance beneath the morning star. But say this night was never meant to end like this, and tell me that I'm wrong, so wrong, and I throw it all away. And in this strange dance, hold me in your arms tonight, 'cause it's for one time I could honestly say that nothing stands in our way. And I'm alive. La la la, la la la, la la la, la la la, la la la. Thank you very much.
Philip Selway performing Strange Dance. That is the title track to his most recent solo album, which is out now. Philip Selway's been my guest today on World Cafe. Philip, thank you so much for joining me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm Raina Douris, back in a moment with more World Cafe.